Good morning and welcome to It's How You'll Be Remembered. I am Julie Jones, your host and the CEO of Today's Professionals. And with me today is a very special guest, AJ Sarcioni. Did I say that right?
Wow, congratulations. That's not something everyone gets right the first time. So
That's my Italian coming out, right?
I love it. You did it perfectly.
AJ, I am so glad that you are here today. As a matter of fact, I have to say, we met networking. Thank you to Lynette Rogers, who is a wonderful connector of people, for
Absolutely.
bringing us together. I feel like you are my long lost brother. I mean,
Well, we have so much to catch up on then. I think there's been many years where we haven't had that sibling opportunity. So it just seems like we got to spend a lot of time together catching up.
Right, right. Oh my gosh. So I have just enjoyed getting to know you, your heart and your spirit for people. I mean, it has been such a joy. You're such a bright light in this world. So thank you for spending your time with us today to talk about people first and how really developing your people inside of a company is really what it takes to make a great company work. And so
Absolutely.
share a little bit first about your background because it's fascinating. Everything that you've done is just fascinating.
Yeah. So quickly, my career began in essentially external communications. And so building brand from the outside in. And I was successful with it. I worked at 20th Century Fox and Ogilvy, ended up working for MTV, some YouTube properties that they were launching, and ultimately joined Yahoo in that capacity as well. And throughout that whole journey, there were moments where what I'm about to explain sparked, but I wasn't necessarily as aware of it as I was when I got to Yahoo. And what that is that in particular at Yahoo, I was building brand from the outside in around some of our media properties, specifically our video property, and driving a lot of attention and excitement for people around what the possibility was of it. But the
Right.
challenge was when people came to experience the product, it didn't deliver. And that can be true for a literal product that a company or brand has, as well as for their leadership.
Yes.
And at that moment, I was enlightened around the idea that, wow, I have this ability to excite and deliver a story that makes people interested and intrigued. But if it's not delivering, where is the truth around all of this? And it
Yeah.
started to make me think about building brand from the inside out. And something happened at Yahoo that was very significant where we were going through a tough period. We were either going to get split up or bought by another company. Ultimately, we were bought by Verizon. And when I was there, I started to recognize that the smile inside the company was starting to wane.
Yeah.
This beautiful culture we had, a thing that people talked about in the Bay Area, just didn't feel as alive anymore. And I not only was in my heart hurt by seeing that, but I recognized the importance of that for this company's future success, whatever that was. In
Mhm.
particular, being bought by someone. We
Yeah.
needed to have a thriving culture. And so I turned my career around at that point, or flipped it forward, I would say, and dragged a few people with me from communications and ended up creating a much bigger organization that looked at internal branding, which grew to internal marketing in the way that we develop from the inside out. And so, as I mentioned, this sparked at points in my career, even in my first job at 20th Century Fox, with a culture issue that I helped when I was working for the COO at the time. And it's just amazing how, throughout my journey, it started to trend. Everything's somewhat the same, but just the doorway in which I enter the work now is very different. And it's much more developed from the inside out. And I love that. So,
Right. Right. We were talking right in the green room right before we went on that, you know, we don't really build companies. What we do is build people, and the people build the companies. That was a Zig Ziglar quote, and I really think that when I work with companies, I talk about the three wins, and you start every day with helping your people inside of your company win first because they have to feel good about what they do. They have to enjoy being around the people that they're in. You have to have the culture internally to make people happy. So then when they're happy and they feel good about what they do, they treat your customers very well. Then you've got happy customers and loyal customers. And then when all that happens, then the company wins in being a good brand, a great image, and profits, right?
Yeah, I love that sentiment. And I think that as you're talking about it, words matter, right? As a
Yeah.
communications professional, words do matter. But what also matters is the intention and the emotions behind them. And so when you talk about focusing on employees, there's a lot that's happening in the landscape of a business that people don't even know about. And
Mhm.
I think finding ways to take some of those stories or the magnificent things that are happening and reframing them or positioning them in the way that can be felt by your employees to excite them,
Mhm.
um, and then engage them to make something stronger. You know, one thing I'll share with you that I am very impassioned around is a lot of companies have ERGs, or they call them other things, employee
Right.
resource groups. And there's something beautiful about what you're talking about, the wins, and right, how we celebrate that with employees and focusing on
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Well, we can celebrate employee resource groups by saying, wow, there's these unique types of people in our business, and we should celebrate their moments and these monumental things that happen throughout the year that celebrate them. And that's fabulous. But what's even more powerful is tapping into those groups and having them build the win that then gets to be something significant for the brand. So if they're recognizing something very specific because of their unique ERG, and they're able to create a product or something different that amplifies the brand or the way that the brand reaches the consumer, they're a
Yes.
part of the success themselves. And I
Right.
think that leaning into people in that way too is really important, and helping them create the win, and show their impact is really significant. So I love your 3 wins. I think that's a great way of approaching it.
Yeah, it 100%. And I think this is why we connected so fast, is because we really have similar values and similar ways of viewing the way that we develop and grow companies, is that we develop and grow the people. And let me just say too, if you are catching this live, be sure and say hello. Let us know that you're here. We want to hear your thoughts. If you have a question for AJ or for me, let us know. And also let us know what you're seeing in your companies, as far as how are your companies helping your people grow. And so I love what you're talking about making, creating buy-in. Really is when you are giving people opportunities to participate in the developing of the brand, it really creates the buy-in. There's some science behind what you and I do as well. And I wanted to pull this one up too. 94% of employees say that they would stay at a company longer if the company invested in learning and development. This is coming out of LinkedIn. When I had a plumbing company, I had so many people that would come in and interview. And one of the first questions they would ask is, what's your training program like? What do you do to develop? I want to learn, I want to grow. And so we had to have a really strong training program. Are you finding that as well in the companies that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, I was just on a call last week with a very significant company, global company, around their L&D and a product that I use in particular to bring to life my work, that they're looking to integrate possibly into their onboarding.
Yep.
And you know, I have found that not learning and development is important. It's it's important to showcase what's possible for people, but there has to actually be an exercise around engaging people and making them see not only that possibility, but then taking them through something and rewarding them personally, finding reward in it or feeling the growth inside of it.
Right.
Just offering things. I mean, I worked in the Bay Area. We in tech, we offered a lot of stuff. It
Right.
can be noisy. That was part of what turned me into getting into internal branding, is because there's something very important about that stat. It's that a lot of companies will be like, we do that, but people don't know about it or they don't take advantage about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it comes back to internal branding and the way that it shows up.
Yeah.
Oftentimes there's too much going on in people's lives in general. We all know this, like outside of work, there's too much going on in our lives.
Yeah.
So inside of work, it has to be very pragmatic around how you're delivering these programs and the opportunities to people so they actually feel that it's alive and they feel the possibility and they feel that they can do it, that there's support there to do it.
Right.
You know, so I think it goes much deeper than just developing programs, but actually the way that you brand them and bring them to life for people matters.
100%. And I think too, when you offer the training, make it easy for them to attend. You know, give them time away, make it during a lunch and learn, provide lunch. You know, there's more science here coming out of the World Economic Forum that says that the soft skills, or I call them people skills training, like communication and leadership, emotional intelligence, you know, that is a skill that can be learned. It actually boost productivity. It's easy for you to say, 12%, and delivers, look at this, 250% ROI.
Yeah, I think I mean, listen, I think there's plenty of research out there to prove that this stuff matters. It kind of goes back to what you were just saying, making it accessible, you know, equitable, inclusive for companies, because most people are going to get to a point where they just say they don't have time or they don't have the support for it. And so, you know, for those types of stats to come alive, it has to be embedded into the way that you do reviews or the way that you actually are building the employee. And perhaps, you know, in your yearly reviews, it should look back on what development programs have you taken initiative around, and how have you seen any type of support or lack thereof? And I think that being more deliberate around making it connected to your values and actually creating a review in that capacity starts to make people feel the importance around it, but also it then puts pressure on the managers to make sure that it is a part of the employee's growth and development. Because really, as you know, there's quite a few stats around managers, but there's the one that most everyone knows: people don't work for a company, they work for people. Right. So it goes right back to what we're talking about today. So if your managers aren't enabling and encouraging and inspiring this inside of their teams, it gets lost. And what's really interesting when you talk about EQ is that as you look at EQ across the life cycle, if you want to call it, or the trajectory of a career, and you think of people like in maybe a more junior role, and then they advance into managers and then into directors and VPs and SVPs and CEOs, the higher you increase on that, EQ falls, it drops. And it's usually around the director level where you start to see a significant drop. And the reason being is when you reach those types of levels, the pressure that's being put upon you is much more connected to ROI and how are we delivering the business than it is around how are you enabling people. Managers at times will have a better sense of EQ, but what's happening even more and more as we watch jobs change and titles change and the ways business change, they're being pressure on delivering in ways that more senior roles and other times have. And so they're becoming less concerned to the person. And as you said earlier, and as we're talking about today, it matters about people. It matters about their well-being, about the balance that you have inside of an employee. And EQ is so significant to enhance as you grow in your career. If you look at certain CEOs who have significant EQ, like Satya Nadella from Microsoft, like these are people that make it a very important part of their leadership, and it shines. When he joined the company, there was a bot that they had released shortly after him joining that he was not a leader of a part of, if it's correct in my understanding, and it was a failure. I think the bot was called Tay, if I'm remembering correctly, and it was a significant failure. The bot did some very horrible things quickly online. And it was a moment for this leader to really showcase how they were as a leader. And he shined because he went to the team and said, hey, I know your intention wasn't to do this. I know your intention wasn't to create something that was going to create this failure. I know that to be true. And so what we need to do is look back at how can we own that we did. Sorry, I think I stopped for a second there, but hopefully I'm back.
Yes, you're back.
How we did something wrong and how we can learn from this to improve ourselves to be better. Right. Let's own it. Let's show the world that this wasn't our intention and let's be better at it.
That's right.
Moment for him. And I think that we all know the opposite of that. And it's sad. We all know many leaders who are the opposite of that, who, you know, would put the pressure in the onus of something bad upon these people. And rather than owning it themselves and say, hey, I'll take this on, let's do better the next time. And I think it's really important for leadership to lead that way, you know?
Right. And what you're talking about, I think is really important because managers need to go through training as well, because just because you are doing well in your job and you're getting promoted doesn't mean you know how to move into this next position. So every time somebody receives a promotion, there needs to be some type of training and onboarding, just like when you come into the company, you also need to train your managers.
Yeah, I think management training is extremely significant. There's plenty of research around it. And a lot of us probably also realize, whether it's in our own careers or ones that we've seen in others, that a lot of people just get moved into roles because of maybe their success as an independent contributor. And while that's great, they then don't have the skills to enable other people to achieve that. And what's the reality is they may have never had a manager themselves that enabled it in them. And it came from their own personal, you know, approach. But when you start to move into that other level, it becomes less about you and what you're doing individually and more about how you're engaging other people. And so, yeah, they need to learn those skills and need to learn how to influence and be present in that way.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Because people don't leave jobs, they leave managers.
Yeah.
And really it's because a manager doesn't have the communication skills, doesn't have the confidence, doesn't really know how to have a conversation around, oh, we messed up here and it was your fault. But rather than saying we messed up here and it was your fault, how do you have the conversation around what you were just talking about saying we need to learn from this and move forward? And so how can we all grow from this opportunity?
Yeah, I think you're right. And again, back to internal brand. It's why when I look at that holistically, a lot of that's in there is leadership development. A lot that's in there is how are we, managers are a part of that brand, right?
Yes.
The way that they show up. And so, you know, having come out of that career and have my own business, one of the programs that I've created is called Authentic Authority. And I've worked mostly one-on-one with leaders that are growing their careers on defining their leadership brand and how they communicate and how they show up. What are their intentions? So then they create the experience that actually does create the influence and presence that they want to have as a leader. And most people want to be great leaders, right? They're not in it to fail. And they just need to have a little bit more structure, a little bit more understanding of how to show up. And I just recently, as you know, took that program and I'm in my first cohort with a group of people now, doing it on a group level. And what I'm finding is like already the idea of how significant this program could be in people's companies as well.
Yes.
Based upon what we're talking about, because there's rigor in it. There's tangible items that you get out of it. You feel the growth immediately. And that's the kind of programs that we need to inspire inside of companies, because listen, I have been through my own fair share of management training. We've all done all the different, assessments and all the stuff. And we learn these fabulously unique things about ourselves, but then what?
Yeah.
We talk about it,
we apply it.
Exactly. There's no plan. It goes flat. And not necessarily out of my program, but on companies, there's no accountability around it. What are you doing with it? How is your 30, 60, 90 plan showing up? Where have you seen success? Where have you seen opportunities where it didn't work, and what can you do? And I think like, I'm really excited about this group. I'm excited about future groups, personally running them, but also for the business. And, you know, if anyone's interested, they can look on my website, ajsarcioni.com / the program's called Authentic Authority Leadership Program. So it's /AALP. And there's an opportunity to reach out to me. Where I'm at right now is, as you know, Julie, I'm very interested in talking with people and understanding who people are and why they want to be in this, because it's my time that I'm investing too. And I want to make sure I work with people that really want this.
Yes, you know, me too.
You know,
yes,
there's a lot of people that just want the check mark. I did this, I did that. And that's a
right. But it's not going to go, it's not going to get you the results that you want. I want to say hello to Ida Gonzalez, who is in the comments, and she is saying hello to us. We are so glad that you are here, Ida. Thanks for popping in.
Hi, Ida.
And I wanted to say too, I love the fact that you and I are both branching off and doing cohorts with individuals, because we both started off working with companies. And what I found, and I'm sure you did too, is that when the feedback would come back, it would be, this is the most valuable training that we've had, because the companies really train in how to do your job, the technical, how to use the software, how to, you know, they might do some soft skills training, but when we come in and we do what we do, people want more of it. It's just craving it. And so I started thinking about, you know, if they're wanting more, companies only have so much time and really money that they want to spend on this. So how do we take it to the people? And that's, you know, what we've both been working on. I've been working on that as well. I've got a 12-week class coming up on the Soft Skills Accelerator. Awesome. And it really does it because it's not what you know, it's how you connect. And this is what we are talking about right now as you move into management. Anytime you invest in yourself and learn how to connect better with people, how to have the conversations, how to be authentic. I mean, authentic and professional right now are such key words right now, emotional intelligence, because as we're all being called back into the office, we're finding out that we're a little rusty on our people skills.
Absolutely. I think that's amazing that you're doing it. You know, having gone into companies like Nike and Cliff Bar and LinkedIn and worked with teams, you're right. There are certain people who then yearn to say, I want more, I want more, I want more. Mm-hmm. And I think that having those programs are important for people that recognize that this type of work can differentiate them. Mm-hmm. And also finding ways to offer that as an extension to whatever the work is we are doing with companies. You know, one leadership development I did with a company, I worked with their whole leadership team. We integrated individual time for each of those leaders with me. And I loved that the company did that. I love that that was an opportunity for every leader and I to have time together, because it's in those one-on-ones where people then start to see some of the sparks where they can create change in their lives. And then they decide how do they want to go about it. So I love that, you know, that you're doing that. Yeah.
You know, I think you're right. And I love that you find time to work individually. I do that too. And when I had a plumbing company, what I found was when I could sit with the plumbers and say, what's going on? You know, how are we doing? And anytime anybody left, I always wanted to say, tell me about your experience here. You know, what could we do better? What do you see for the company? Because then they have nothing, you know, nothing left to, you know, to say. I mean, they're already leaving. But it's really important that you have that time with people. And I always encourage managers and model this like you do, to take time, whether it's weekly, twice a month, once a month, whatever it is, to give your time to them. Because people want to know that you care about them and that they're more than just an employee. They're actually a person that you care about, their family.
Really. Absolutely. And I think two things. One, I think that there's an importance around what you're saying for sure. I think that people sometimes get caught in the overwhelm of having too much to do
Yes.
because they make it structured. And there becomes like, I need to do this and I need to do this and I need to do this. The greater thing
To-do
you
list.
do, yeah, yeah. And like, listen, to-do lists are fabulous and I know that they work. But when it becomes a part of who you are, when it becomes a part of how you show up, then
Mhm.
it's real. You know, one of the greatest pieces of feedback that I receive, it is the greatest piece of feedback that I've received a lot, and I'm very thankful and grateful for it, is that I go in places and people then say back to me, wow, you really made me feel seen. You really made me feel heard. You made
Yes.
my team feel seen. You made my team feel heard. That there's an intention in there deep down inside of me, but I don't walk in going, oh, I'm gonna make sure everyone feels seen and heard and all the things. That is genuinely how I was raised. It's how I have positioned myself in life to be as a human, because
Right.
I do care about people.
Right.
So I'll get to the second point, but quickly in here, I'm a practitioner of heart math. And one of the greatest lessons in heart math that I personally cherish is balanced care. And what happens is you can either be in overcare or in balanced care. And when you're in overcare, you're worrying too much about, am I showing up right? And am I doing it all right? And whatever.
Yes.
You're in balanced care and you're just in a place of genuinely showing care and knowing that what you can do is what you can do and what you can't do is what you can't do, and
Right.
using your choices and finding your boundaries and your balance. It's great. And I think the other thing that, you know, is really significant um, is when we're working with these teams, when we're working with people, is that they recognize that that EQ, that their communication skills, the development, as you were talking about your 12 weeks of soft skills, and obviously my programs too, that
Yes.
you don't flip a switch. It's like going to the gym. All of us I know want to go to the gym and walk out the door after we've been there for 35 minutes and say, I lost 10 pounds or I gained the muscles that I wanted.
I'm going to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit.
I can see you, women's health, you know, and like, but it's not real. That's not how it works. You have to put time and energy into growing this and building it inside of yourself. Yes. And then over time, it does grow and it does become a part of who you are. Just like if you go to the gym a ton and you work really hard to get yourself to where you ever want to be physically or healthy. And then you start to realize, well, I don't need to show up as much, or I don't need to do it as much. I just need to maintain it. And I think that it's important for people to recognize this, whether it's an individual, it's a team, it's a company, that like one and done is not how it works.
That's right. That's right.
Know? So
it's not one and done in going to the gym. It's not one and done in creating a new skill. It's not a one and done. Oh, I'm going to do a lunch and learn, and now my whole team is going to be transformed. It's not a one and done. It is always a journey. It's never. I mean, it's about the journey. It's not. We're just going to learn something and then boom, we're transformed. It just doesn't happen that way.
I'll leave this as a last nugget for people, because
you had dropped some good ones today too.
Oh, I appreciate you. I think this is a good one. I hate when people say, oh, no more cakes and parties or happy hours. They don't work. Well, it's because of the way that you do it. Because they do work. They are an important part of culture. They're an important part of celebrating. They're an important part of community. But if you literally just take people and put a cake in front of them with some balloons, what is the point? If you take them out for a happy hour and put some drinks and appetizers in them, what is the point? Sure, in those moments, there's going to be some probably spikes of positive renewing emotion, and that's going to be fabulous. But it's going to fall off the minute that they walk away, because then they have to worry about deliverables in their career. They have to worry about their families, all these other things. So I think, you know, going to the method that I use this imagination method. And the reason why I use imagination method is, as we grow older, our imagination falls off. It's a part of the way that we're educated, as you know, as an educator. Like, it's a challenge as we grow, the way that our school systems are, just the way that we are as humans and what we're asked of when we're in these when we're employees. We're not inspired to dream. We're not inspired to think about stuff that is bigger and what's possible. And so by the age of about 35, there's only 30% of people using vivid imagination, and it continues to fall off the older we get. And so we have to inspire that curiosity inside of people to think what is possible. And then when you do that, and you think, I'm going to have this happy hour, and you start to say, why am I having this happy hour? What is the reason why I want to have this? What's the clarity around it?
Right.
Then you need to influence. What's my intention? What do I want this to deliver? What do I want it to inspire? How long do I want it to inspire? Then you create the experience around the happy hour. You show up. You maybe capture certain pieces of information from people. You take photos. You might have a videographer there. You have a board that allows people to leave sentiments. You might have a phone like you get when you go to the weddings and you leave messages. And then you create a strategy. And through that strategy, you maybe have 60, 90 days after, even more, where you can create a calm strategy around how did this one happy hour that lasted 2.5 hours that cost maybe a couple $1,000s create 6, 7, 8 months of content that reminds people of how significant that moment was, of how special that moment was, of what we learned or what we captured. And then you keep that vibe and that energy alive. So if that inspires people,
right,
I hope it does. It's about, as we said earlier, not only doing the work, but taking action around it and being accountable and continuing and continuing and continuing to persevere and inspire people, because that's where the growth really happens.
Oh my gosh, you are so right. It's about inspiring and creating the contentment and making people feel loved within your company. That is where you want to start. If you want to turn your company around, you got to start inside your company.
Yes.
If you want to turn your life around, you got to start inside you.
Yes.
And so, yes, oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation. You know that I could talk to you forever.
I appreciate that.
I mean, usually when we're together, it's like, oh, I have to go. And I'm like, but wait, AJ, but wait, stay here. Don't leave.
So true. And we know that to be true, because the last time I was missing a call, I was like, wait, I'm 15 minutes late. Yeah.
But wait, I need you here.
Yes.
AJ, thank you so much for being here. And before we go, the name of this show is It's How You'll Be Remembered, because it's really not just about etiquette or just about management, but really it's about what you leave behind. It's how people will remember you. How will you be remembered?
Oh, shoot. I really hope that people just remember me for my smile.
Oh, it's $1 million smile.
I appreciate that. I think it's so fun when we can make other people smile. And I'm so thankful that, even throughout everything I go through in life, like not everything's fabulous and perfect, but I always find a way to find something purposeful out of it and to find a little positivity inside of it. So if they can remember this smile, then they'll remember me.
I agree 100%. We will put your website in the comments of this link of this show when it's published.
Cool.
And thank you so much for being here. I mean, you are just such a bright light, and you brighten up every room when you walk into it. And thank you for being here today. It has been a delight to talk to you.
I appreciate you, and thanks for asking me to be here. I really am thankful.
All right. We will see you next time.